Welcome guys to another episode with the Doomtell. Yes, I'm gonna try to double upload today. I don't know if this video is coming out today or tomorrow, but we'll see. Basically I just wanted to talk about kind of related to X299, and that is, what is the future for Intel HEDT? We already kind of know a little bit because there was leaks that came out about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago now. And that's basically W790. That's the name for the next HEDT. It makes sense to a certain extent. I think that overall, the biggest problem with X299 is that in the last 4 years, X299 has been completely demolished in terms of its purpose on the new market. As basically, well, let's just go back in time and look at it. So what made X79 so popular was the fact that it took an excellent architecture, the best architecture that came out at that time, Sandy Bridge, and it was able to add more cores. And of course this wasn't new. X58 did that pretty well, but the biggest difference is that although X58 did that well, it was kind of unnecessary on the market. If you wanted something that was high-end, that wasn't AMD, you kind of had to go with X58. The Z, I forget the Z boards at that time, they just couldn't give you that performance. The quad cores were just not that powerful. They weren't binned right. You had to go with X58. X79 did that a lot better. It gave you 6 core monsters that were extremely well binned. Well, you could have better bins, going to the extreme editions. And it also gave you server side, large quantity of cores for, people that just need it at home, not server prices. Yeah, of course the prices were higher than normal platforms, but we were happy to pay because at least they weren't the tens of thousands of dollars you need for a server rack. And so they kind of made this new kind of workstation computer that obviously existed before that, but was much cheaper. And so that's what we liked about HEDTs in general, the X series. X99 was already kind of treading along. It wasn't doing that well. I think the main selling point for X99 was the fact that it gave you DDR4 versus X79, and to be honest, that's small potatoes considering all this time. And so that's why it's interesting to talk about X79 and X99. There hasn't really been anything like that in a while. And so X299, although it was an interesting purchase at the time, or maybe even not really, it basically got treaded on by Ryzen giving you 6 to 8 cores in the in a consumer platform, pretty much in a consumer package, and obviously consumer prices, at least at the beginning. What Ryzen has kind of failed to do in the last couple generations is to give you a lot of cores for those low prices that we got it originally. And although the performance is still great for the price, or approximately, they definitely haven't put the effort to drop the prices more. And that's totally fine. It's understandable. Intel's not really making any performance gains, and so Ryzen doesn't really have to do anything, except for very recently. But then again, still there are price premiums on these new chips. The 12th gen, of course, that's what I'm talking about. So what can we see in the future for W790? Now, there's 2 ways about it that I could see it going. We already kind of know the rumors, but aside from the rumors, let's just talk about what I think should happen, and then let's talk about what I think is going to happen. So what should happen, in my opinion, is obviously we see basically the same cores as the newest generation, but of course in performance mode. So instead of having your chiplets that are split, so you have your Atom cores and your performance cores, we would see instead just full-fledged 16 cores, all performance cores. And I think that would be really excellent. That's something that I personally wish I could buy today. And I think that would be a really good place to start with. Of course, I don't know if you could do that on LGA 1700. That's kind of where the rumors are going, that we're going to stay on the same socket. And that doesn't sound very appealing to me personally, especially not if I'm going to try to overclock and trying to run these multi-threaded applications. And so to me, it makes a lot more sense to see basically something that a single socket that takes C621 and X299 and kind of meshes them together in terms of CPU performance. Now, obviously, we want to see quad channel come back, or even hexa channel. If they could do that, that would be really excellent. And you know what? I wouldn't really care if it's just triple channel. I just want more channels, And obviously, we don't really need more than 256 gigabytes of RAM. Maybe on the higher end stuff, we might want to see, if we are going to cannibalize C621, let's do it the right way, and let's bring in a 512 gigabytes if you do want to run that much. And then for PCIe lanes, whether we do stick with LGA 1700 or we go with something larger, maybe twice that, or maybe quadruple that, comparing it to Threadripper, how they did it. If we do that, then I say we should definitely have more PCIe lanes at the very least, because consumer platform currently just doesn't give you enough. I can't, I know quad SLI is kind of dead, but as a person that wants to go on hardware bot and try to push the envelope on older GPUs, for 3D Mark, I need new CPUs, and so that's kind of hard to do. Now, do we want to see PCIe 5.0 on W790? Now, that's not really necessary in my opinion. We could stick to PCIe 4.0, and I'd be happy with that. Or even we could have more lanes on PCIe 5.0 and then try to split it out for 4.0. That'd be really, really cool. I'd be so happy with that. Of course, they might not do that because how VRMs are going currently. If we do see the same kind of voltages that we saw for 10 nanometer and 14 nanometer, to speak of the devil, we might have to have larger VRMs than X79 and X99 were famous for. And that's kind of shitty, because I think that's actually the main reason why we've been seeing less features or less feature heavy motherboards. It's exactly because VRMs are more and more costly as the voltages drop and the wattage increases. So if we could see W790, I'm really hoping that these new CPUs will be more robust for voltages. And yeah, that's kind of hard to do, but if the rumors are true, this new CPU should be an architecture that's kind of 0.5ing or slightly refreshing these 12th gen Intel CPUs. So that'd be really interesting to see. Now, I don't really care for names right now. If they went with 11th gen or 12th gen in terms of naming schemes, it does not really matter to me. But I do kind of care about the X naming scheme. Previously, the X299 kind of bastardized the idea of the X. Originally, the X meant Extreme Edition, which meant a binned CPU. But what we saw with most of X299 was that these CPUs were not necessarily binned, or they were binned, but if you bought a 7900X, you're not going to get the clock rates that a full-fledged XE will give you. So that was kind of rough, but hopefully it'll change in the next generation. So finally, let's talk about a little bit why I don't think it's a good idea that the rumors are true, or why I don't think it's a good idea to run with LGA 1700, and that's specifically that I think that W790 should have a lot more cores than X299 and 12th gen Intel, and it's for a very, very easy reason. It's that the only reason why people buy X299 and C621, unless they're making servers, which, you know, that's maybe 60% of the people that buy these boards. What would the other 40% do? Well, overclocking and gaming. And yes, of course, you don't need too many cores for gaming. 8 cores is kind of pushing it these days. Maybe 10 cores at some point. But what we want to see is a lot more cores. And 1700 has proven that it can't really do that. That's kind of the reason why you guys have gone with this hybrid big core, small core scheme. So I think that doubling it is a good idea. I think that it might actually happen because it just makes sense. And I think that if they do double the die, that means also double the lanes or triple the lanes. So that's just a benefit for us. Now, how big the boards are going to be? Well, looking at LGA 1700, I think that it is very possible we're not going to see ITX boards for this generation. X299 was already kind of cutting it. There was only one board that came out that was not a monstrous EATX. Everything else was kind of a square EATX or a full-fledged EATX, and I think that's going to stick there. Obviously, we're going to have to see better VRM systems, but I think the main thing we want to see is companies making good decisions on VRMs, not necessarily very high-end, as we've seen with Z490, Z590, Z690s. Those were really overkill. If we looked at Z690, it was almost as if they thought we were going to see full-fledged 16 cores on 1700, and that just did not happen. So even if you bought a really shitty board, it was much better than what you needed for a 12900K. Maybe they're looking for the future, maybe, but as it stands, I think that it's smarter to go with, say, 1000 amp VRMs and kind of try to figure out new ways of making these VRMs more portable. For instance, what I really like looking at, just in my spare time, just looking at it. Yes, I know, I don't know what it is. I just love looking at PCBs these days. Was the Maximus Impact boards, where the VRM was kind of slanted on the side on a separate board, and I thought that was really, really cool. I don't know if it has all the benefits that I might think it has, but I know that for a fact they could do that for this new generation W790, and I'm really hoping they do. Now, could we see W790 having Bitcoin motherboards? That's another factor I've considered, and I think that we will. I think that Intel, AMD, and Nvidia have kind of a duty to their gamers and workstation users to try to simmer down the Bitcoin market, as we've been completely destroyed in terms of GPUs and in terms of motherboards, with everyone buying them out. It's been a very tough ride. We've not been able to fight as gamers and workstation users, and it's been very sad. Personally, I have made a little bit of profit off of selling to Bitcoin miners and other shenanigans that I don't want to go through, but overall it was not good, and hopefully W790 will actually do something about it. I have very high hopes for W790. I hope that they're going to go the Threadripper way, where they promise that the socket is going to be supported for a while. I know that 1700 was something that they said they would support for a while. Although I would like, that to happen for W790. Is it going to be probable if it's not an LGA 1700 socket? I think that's a discussion for another day. I think that Intel overall should be supporting both of these sockets if they're different. If they're not different, then I think that's going to cannibalize the market to a certain extent, or at least we're going to think that Intel is cheap. They're going to cheap out on some things for the performance, because it's the same socket, and they're not going to have this size that they need for everything we want. But here's to hoping for you know, that making the right decision. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Have a good day.